My husband blames me for my pregnancy weight gain. It all started after Catherine was born. She was so beautiful, such a precious thing. We were so happy. Mike and I had talked and agreed that 2 kids were enough, at least for now. He was busy at the office, so I decided to quit my job to spend all my time with Catherine and William. I was looking forward to it, spending time with my kids, raising them right. It had always been my dream. I didn't realize what would happen. The day of her birth had been so beautiful, so life-affirming, so joyous, but it faded so fast. At first there were only little episodes of sadness after they had gone to bed. Then I began to dread waking up, having to feed them, take care of them. I felt so guilty. These were my children. Why didn't I love them like I should? We knew I would gain some weight while I was pregnant. Every woman does. After William was born, I was able to lose most of it. But after Catherine, I just didn't have the energy or the willpower. Mike began making little comments. He would talk about us from years ago, how young and hot we had been. He would bring up times we'd spent all night being together or lounged on the beach in Thailand, carefree and proud of how we looked. With each story of how lively and spry he used to be, I felt more and more worthless. But I can't blame him. He didn't realize. Or maybe he did. Sometimes while he was at work and the kids were napping, I would take off my shirt and just stare at myself in the mirror. I would gaze into the eyes of the disgusting creature looking back at me. I would count the weeks or months that had passed since Mike looked me in the eyes and told me that I looked pretty. One night I was in the bathroom changing while I lay on the bed watching TV. I looked out the door to see him for a brief second, staring at me like I was some sort of foul monster. He quickly looked away and pretended he had been watching TV, but that moment had been enough. I'll never forget that look. I cried as silently as I could as he fell asleep that night. I resolved to do something. I talked to a friend who told me what I already knew. I cut back on what I ate, tried exercising, started cooking more vegetables. At the time, things would be going well. I would lose a few pounds, then I would have a tough day with the kids, or Mike would make an offhand comment, and I would backslide. Spiral. With each slide back, I would close myself off a little more. I found myself resenting Mike and even Catherine, which only led to more self-blame, self-loathing, as I wondered how I could really feel that way towards my own daughter. Then one day at the strong urging of my friend, I worked up the courage to talk to Mike, to tell him about how I felt, how he'd hurt me, how I wanted to change for him and for myself. We lay absent-mindedly watching TV. We had barely spoken all night. My heart was practically pounding out of my chest as I kept trying and failing to form words. I was just about to speak and an ad came on for the pill. There were doctors saying it was a miracle drug and handsome men and skinny women talking about how it had changed their lives with pictures to prove it. I went to my doctor the next day. He read out a long list of potential side effects and talked about how it was an experimental program, a long-term commitment. I was barely listening. I was just thinking about that beautiful woman from the ad. I decided to go for the pill against all odds. I woke up the next morning 2 pounds lighter. Mike noticed right as I got out of bed. He kissed me for the first time in a week. I felt like a new woman, excited to be alive, to be with my children. The next day, another 2 pounds. Then another. Within a few weeks, I could fit into my wedding dress. I put it on and ran around the house, laughing and playing with my kids. And that night, Mike and I had the best treasured moment we'd had in a long time. My life was being transformed one pill at a time. I felt more confident, beautiful, proud of myself. Mike took me out for the first time in forever. People at the restaurant looked at us like we were a wealthy business magnate and his trophy. He took me dancing and we spun, tangoed, and waltzed the night away, passion surging through our bodies like we were 22. The next day I noticed a rib showing, but quickly forgot it as I saw the rest of my beautiful body. But the day after I noticed more ribs, then more. I kept getting skinnier and skinnier no matter what I ate. I called my doctor, but he told me about how I had agreed to take it for at least 6 months. Stopping it before then would break the cycle and have dire consequences. My face became gaunt and hollow. My stomach continued to shrink. Mike was worried. Then one day he burst into tears saying he felt responsible. He realized how he had made me feel and he'd driven me to this. He became racked with guilt and anxiety and turned to food for help. He wanted to avenge his own misdeed on himself. As I got skinnier and skinnier, he kept gaining weight. It was as if each look at my frail frame caused him to eat more and more. He stopped exercising. He looked at himself the same way he'd looked at me before the pill. I was no longer a whale. I was a stick insect. I looked like I couldn't even carry my own child. I tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. I told him we were in this together, but he insisted on fighting his own battle. Then, one day, as I was cleaning off his desk at home, his desk phone started ringing. I let it ring. It was probably about work. I was leaving the room when the doctor came on the answering machine. The doctor was talking about the side effects and how it was a long-term commitment, but that they were ready for him to start any time. Mike was going on the pill. I fell flat on the floor. How on earth would he want to get himself into this misery? How would we both come out of this? If I had only known it would all turn out this way, I would have stuck with the traditional way of shedding weight. Even though it was a longer journey, but eventually I would have achieved the goal without a tragic end. Please like, share, and subscribe.